Hi, my name is Rob Scott from UC Today, and welcome to our Microsoft Ignite 2023 special. Today, I'm joined by our Microsoft Teams resident expert and co-founder of Empowering Cloud, Tom Arbuthnot, and our very special panel of guests today. And together, we're going to run through all the latest headlines from Microsoft Ignite 2023. So welcome, everybody. How's it going?
Yeah, good. Thanks, Rob.
Great. Tom, what did you think of the event? Big news. I mean, big news last week, big news this week. Lots happening.
Big news all the time at the moment. Yeah, lots of big news. Yeah, it was really good. I mean, it was. We knew going into it was going to be all about AI, and indeed it was all about AI. But we did get a whole bunch of Teams feature announcements as well. So it's a big show. It's Microsoft's multi-product show. So it's Azure, it's Microsoft 365, it's everything Microsoft do. So I think with the panel here, we'll zoom in on some of the Teams elements, but we'll also talk about kind of how we found the show and what the highlights were as well.
Absolutely. So lots of Copilot in today's session, but we're going to run through all the Teams related updates as well, which there are plenty of them. But what about the OpenAI news? What about this new employee of Microsoft, Tom? What do we think?
Yeah, I mean, this is like the biggest acqui-hire ever, I think. I mean, it's amazing. It's still unfolding, so as we record, it might well be different when the recording comes out. But from Friday night, Sam Altman getting pushed by the very small board at OpenAI to before the markets open on Monday, Satya having hooked him up as having a whole team inside of Microsoft is really interesting. I think there'll be more to this to come, but yeah, it's a massive, exciting move for Microsoft if they manage to hold together having that kind of talent inside of Microsoft. Really exciting.
Yeah, but as you say, it is changing daily, so let's be careful what we say, but let's see how that rolls out. But for now, let's dive into the news. Microsoft Teams in Ignite. I mean, one of the biggest themes of the event was obviously Microsoft Copilot. Tom, what's top of your list?
Yeah, so obviously Copilot, Ignite is a combination of re-announcements because it's sometimes people who don't follow the space as closely as probably people that listen to this pod do. They don't hear the minutiae, so there's lots of recap, and then they'll sprinkle in some genuine new announcements. So on a Teams level, Microsoft 365 Copilot, they showed it working across channels, which is a really important part of the story. If you think about Teams, channels is where you should be collaborating together. So having that AI to do summaries and gain insights from your channels within Teams is pretty fundamental, actually. That's quite a big addition. And they showed Copilot working with Teams Phone, but post-call. So previously they had announced Teams Copilot in Teams Phone, where during a mid-call you can ask questions about the call so far, get summaries, but now you'll be able to dive in after your call and get the summary. And the last announcement we had that's really material to Teams is Copilot will now work without saving a persistent transcript. Which sounds like a small thing, but it's a really big deal for certain customers who, from a compliance point of view, don't want to keep a recording or transcript of the call, but do want to have Copilot work during that call. So now they can enable Copilot without enabling persistent transcripts.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, another feature we said we talk about was intelligent recap. That's another talk me through that again. Is it like an app that you add in to Teams?
Yeah, Microsoft are trying to sort this story out. So intelligent recap, well, first of all, you have meeting recap, which is included in Teams Core. So that's a basic recap summary of the meeting. Then if you buy Teams Premium add-on, which is $10 per user per month and includes a bunch of other features besides this, you step up to intelligent meeting recap, which is a post-event AI summary, but you can't interact with it. You can't ask questions, you can't change it. It's just like, here's your summary. And then if you step up to Copilot, which is $30 per user per month, then you get the interactivity during your calls and meetings and post-call. Microsoft have slightly tidied this story up now in that if you buy Copilot from December, they will roll intelligent recap into that Copilot license so that you don't get the rest of Teams Premium, but you do get the intelligent meeting recap, which just makes sense. If you're buying the $30 AI product from Microsoft, it seems weird that they would exclude the AI meeting summaries. I'm really pleased they've tidied that story up. It's going to put pressure on Microsoft on Teams Premium because that was one of the key features of Teams Premium. So if they want to, and they will, they'll want to upsell people on Premium still. They're going to have to justify that $10 extra. But for all Copilot users, it really rounds out the story.
But it's all baked into the UX. There's no separate application or anything required.
There's a new Meet app. I mean, Teams talks about features as apps in a kind of weird techie way, but there's a new app called Meet that can sit on your sidebar that shows your kind of pre and post meeting experience. So that's a way to go and find your like meetings that are upcoming, and you can say things like, please record that meeting for me, I'm not going to make it. So they're kind of trying to finally bring together this story of, before, during, and after meetings, and having a life cycle to your meeting experience. And that Copilot will be accessible, and intelligent meeting recap, I should say, will be accessible in the Meet app.
Great. Has anyone got any kind of personal experience or comments on the Copilot experience in Teams so far?
Yeah, I'll jump in with a comment that wasn't really about Copilot, but it was specifically about the intelligent meeting recap being sorted out. And I think that is... Microsoft went the right direction with that. I think that's a big reason that they slow rolled announcing any dates, and that they kind of said, hey, this is coming, but we're not going to give you a lot of really good details about when or all that, because I think that they didn't know what they didn't know yet. And these types of overlaps and complications with licensing were the things they needed to bubble to the surface to really get their hands on. And I think the way they announced this at Ignite was the right move, taking intelligent meeting recap, rolling that into Copilot. For those of us like myself that still have a wee bit of sticker shock on Copilot, that helps. That makes it better. But I agree with Tom. It's going to be interesting to see how they continue to structure the story around the value add of premium moving forward. That's one I think will be interesting to watch from a partner standpoint, needing to position those licenses.
In addition to that, you'll get the meeting recap in your meetings as well. Like when you go into the meetings recording, you'll also get the intelligent recap there standalone, because I've been using Copilot for almost 4 weeks now. So it's working seamlessly. With Copilot recorded or transcripts, you get those meeting recaps by default. That's the major reason why Microsoft had to include the intelligent recap also, because it was not making a difference anywhere else as well.
Yeah, and I guess there's two themes there that were prevalent throughout the show. Josh mentioned premium upsell there, like a whole bunch of other products got a premium offer. So the style I'd like to throw to you on Planner in a minute, because that had a premium offer. SharePoint got a premium offer. So Microsoft seemed to be rolling into this model of core, and for just a little bit extra, you can get these features, which is a new direction for Microsoft. It started off with certain products, and now it feels like it's going across the suite as like you buy your E5, you get your core experiences, but if you want this, the little bit extra, you have to pay the extra per product to get the extra features.
Yeah, and I think for me, one of the big stories was what wasn't announced. I mean, I attended virtually, and they had the Q&A, and you could look at the latest questions or the most popular questions. And on both days, the most popular question, which was kind of upvoted or liked basically about 200 times by the end of the day, was, okay, this is great. Copilot is available for enterprises if you're willing to pony up. I did the math, $108,000 per year, because you have to sign up 300 users per month in an annual subscription.
Yeah.
What about the democratization of AI? What about organizations, even big organizations, that would like to experiment with it, and certainly, SMBs? And I thought that was a real missed opportunity from Microsoft, because clearly both days there was hundreds of people that really wanted an answer, and there was radio silence.
This is the danger of publicly crowdsourcing questions. You've got to be ready to answer the people's questions, right?
Well, that's right. Or say that there'll be more. I mean, more information in the new year. Or the fact that it was radio silence, when you looked at the comments, it led to some conspiracy theories that I don't buy into, right? So I just think, as exciting as Copilot is, and there was tons of excitement, and, Microsoft has always been about democratization of technology and AI. It's like this, and then people, the general availability of Copilot, for the first time, this was a product that is generally available, but to a very...
Not generally.
Yeah, exactly, with a lot of asterisks. So I think that was a big, kind of story that was, a non-story in terms of, or an area where they didn't announce anything.
Agreed. I think that was a myth. And you're right. There's lots of we want to bring Copilot / AI to 8 billion people. What
Right.
Microsoft are doing from a marketing standpoint, they've rebranded the Bing chat experience Copilot 2. So they're blurring the lines. Everything AI is now Copilot. So they're like, anybody can get Copilot for free, which is the consumer version. Enterprises can get Copilot with enterprise security. And then, any business can get that. And then enterprises can get M365 Copilot. But I completely agree. There's a conversation to be had. And we know Microsoft are working on getting M365 Copilot to everybody. There's a combination of technical and commercial considerations. So I suspect next year is the answer. But like you, Kevin, I would have liked to have seen at least a roadmap projection for, we get it. We've started with enterprise because tenants with big data and have an option. But I mean, it does feel very, if you don't know the inside track, it does feel very commercial. It's like, well, we want AI for everybody, but mainly with people with money is the priority.
Well, that's why Scott just scrambled over the weekend and brought in Sam Altman, right? He's going to democratize AI for him. So
that's what they were missing. Yeah.
I felt that during the day one keynote, though, they had the perfect opportunity to announce that, like how Copilot will be available for everyone. They were kind of like building to it, like showing all the Copilots, all the new stuff, and then bye-bye.
Yep.
It's like, really? Are you just going to leave us hanging?
I'll add to it for the SMB and SMC. So I got a chance to speak with the program manager for the SMB and SMC. Copilot announcement for SMB SMC is coming at Enterprise Connect. They are not announcing it now. They were planning to announce it, but they decided to hold it on to Enterprise Connect. In addition to that, they have also listed down a list of 300 customers for early access program on SMB and SMC as well. Which customers we don't know, but they have started an early access program for the SMC and SMB customers as well with 300 users, like the minimum of our 300 users. There, the limit of minimum licenses for Copilot, we don't know the exact number yet because they were a bit hesitant to disclose the exact number of what the minimum licenses would be there for SMB and SMC, but they started an early access program for them.
Super. Well, moving on, Tom, let's talk Teams Phone. Voice isolation, not a phrase I've heard before. Tell me more.
Yeah, this was the big announcement on Teams Phone. So beyond Teams Phone having Copilot, voice isolation is a new way to improve call quality. So we previously had background noise reduction, and that's the classic, like take out the noises in the background. What's happening here is you're training Teams on your particular voice, and then it will, during mid-call or mid-meeting, it will isolate your voice and send that into the call or meeting and ignore both background sounds, but also other people's voices. So if you have that scenario where someone's talking right behind your shoulder, or you have tightly compacted desks and not the best headsets, it will actively ignore that other person's voice. And everybody that has this has actually been legitimately impressed by how good it is. So it seems like a really nice addition.
This is super significant in terms of experience, and I think in spite of major advances from the device manufacturers, I think all of us still hear quite a bit of background noise on calls. It can be really disruptive. And I think the other interesting benefit is now we're getting everyone to record their voice. It begins to play in. So this feature begins to kind of open the door to some of the other AI features that having voice and face kind of inside and recognized will open up. So it's a mainstream way to get people kind of into this versus talking about some of the specific functionality right now that might be conference room specific around attribution or something else like that. So I think this is a really novel way to open the door, but it's a standout rockstar feature.
Yeah, you're right. It's a really good way. Like there's something, it's in your personal interest to enroll yourself. Like you get an upside, which is how most people think about effort. So it's like, oh look, enrolling is normal. And while you're here doing your voice, why don't you enroll your face as well? And then we've got the Copilot transcription story all nailed down. So yeah, I think it's a really interesting move. There'll still be lots of tension around it, particularly in Europe because Europe and data. But it's a really nice feature.
Yeah, I think what I found interesting, I mean, they did say they're going to use, the intelligent speaker piece. They'll move that to the cloud and similar to the facial recognition. I think if you look more broadly than just the Teams ecosystem, there are other UC as a service platforms, like, for example, WebEx, that already have this optimized for my voice. So, I mean, as much as it was like exciting to have it in Teams, it wasn't like, wow, this is a feature that nobody's necessarily thought of. So I do think that all the UC vendors should look at what the other platforms are doing, because there's lots of kind of good ideas that you may want to borrow. And in this case, it's nice that Teams borrowed it, and it's going to make the experience better.
I think to that point, Kevin, we've heard consistently from rival UC vendors that Teams Phone is not a class-leading PBX system. It's always the competitive language looked. And if you examine the sort of list and speed of Microsoft development across the features, I think that argument is less and less relevant. And then if you add on the potential capabilities with the AI enhancements through Copilot, effectively Microsoft's taking that discussion away from a feature like for like into effectively a new iteration of phone systems. So I think that competitive catch-up point is interesting, and how relevant it is anymore is particularly key.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, because I think all these minutia features, it's like it's not going to change an enterprise's decision, right? So we work with a lot of organizations, having them figure out their strategy. No one picks or doesn't pick Teams as their primary voice system because of any of the little features, right? It's this overview. Does it fit into your strategy? And to your point, hugely impressive is kind of the Copilot natural language, unlocking the value.
Yeah, that's the first time we've seen a feature in the cloud that won't ever be replicated on-prem / in classic PBX. Like previously, the push to the cloud was about user experience and efficiency and cost saving and all those good things. And this is like a whole new experience unlocked to a phone that won't ever happen in anything other than cloud. Not just Microsoft Cloud, other clouds could do a similar thing, but like I think in a few years' time it'll be like, well, obviously I expect my phone calls to automatically take notes. Like, why would that not be a thing? And at that point, you have to be in the cloud to be in that game.
Tom, there was a few other Teams phone features mentioned. Want to talk through those?
Yeah, let's knock through a couple. So private line, everything old is new again. We used to have this in Skype, and we had this in legacy PBXs. So this is a second dedicated number. So the exec wants to give out a number to key people that can just bypass the whole system and get to them directly, their family, their friends, etc. And that's coming to Teams. Website click to call. So this is built on the Azure communication services, but is really riding on the Teams branding. So developers can add a button to a website that is a one click that will do a VoIP call through the website into Teams, so into an auto send or a hunt group potentially. It's trying to kind of democratize that click to call website type experience. Shared calling, again, re-announcement. We've talked about this in previous months, but a really big deal and interesting for the industry because it's pushing for one number and one calling plan for multiple users on Teams. So theoretically, you can light up 10,000 users on a single Microsoft pay-as-you-go calling plan and a single phone number, which is obviously a bit disruptive to the telcos that are keen to push per user plans and per user numbers. I'm sure Patrick has some thoughts on that from an industry point of view, but Microsoft are just looking to light up all those E5 seats that are already licensed that aren't, because they don't want to pay per user for calling plans and phones. So we got the 17 million PBX Teams phone users again. So those are real lit up users with real PSTN connectivity in Teams. But I think shared calling is Microsoft's strategy to push that number, many millions higher.
Yeah, and we've had so many questions from telcos and service providers about exactly how that works and how they compete with Microsoft on that standpoint. I mean, I think that is a struggle, but it's also part of that inclusive frontline worker focus and inclusivity around that we've seen such a big focus from all the vendors, but particularly Microsoft on trying to enable frontline workers and, as you said, equip them with all the communication mediums that they can offer.
Yeah. And on that frontline worker, the last thing we got that was notable was an ability to use the shared device license. That's the $8 per device license to light up Teams Phone on Android mobile, which is a bit of a weird mouthful, but essentially what that means is you can take an Android commodity phone, even a hardened phone, so a rubberized Android phone, and turn it into a VoIP phone for a first line, front line, factory, field worker, retail worker. So it's a really cheap alternative to doing a DeX rollout, for example, where you can just give them an Android hardened phone and light that up for Teams Phone.
Pretty cool. Tom, let's talk Microsoft Teams Rooms. Lots of updates here. What's top of your list?
Yeah, Rooms. It was a good amount of announcements there. Lots of, again, recaps for people that aren't following closely. So lots of on IntelliFrame, multi-streaming cameras, but we got some genuine announcements. So Microsoft are adding speaker recognition to all devices, not just select devices. So previously you had to buy an intelligent speaker, which was confusingly named because it was a microphone, to recognize people's voices for transcription. Microsoft are going to roll that technology out to, I think, all devices. So that's key to their Copilot transcription story, where they can recognize who said what in a meeting room. Windows Autopilot and one-time password. I'd love to throw to Ryan for that because that's quite a big deal, but I think Ryan will do it better justice than me.
Yeah, no, first on the intelligent speaker side. So it looks like this now becomes, if your Teams room, this becomes a core functionality that the cloud can do versus having that device dependence. But the intelligent speaker hardware now kind of pushes down as an option to BYOD as well, which was kind of an interesting announcement as well. So it still has some value. I think part of what we are hearing consistently from customers is that Teams rooms, from a feature functionality perspective, are doing really well. Where a lot of them are focused these days is around how you scale and how you manage, and certainly keeping the reliability piece front and center. And so I think these one-time password, this ability to be able to generate a unique code, hand that to what could be a subcontractor installing this device in a remote city for Teams Room on Windows. Is a huge step forward. It brings Teams Room on Windows from a provisioning perspective, closer to Teams Room on Android, which kind of had this functionality previously. And then certainly Autopilot with auto login. This idea that we could have a device shipped directly to a site, gets plugged in, and it gets both provisioned and logged in automatically within, I think they used a 4-hour example. This is a huge step forward as well. And so I think large organizations have been clamoring for some of these tools for a while to be able to provision at scale. And then there's also some interesting management in terms of Pro Portal functionality but like this focus on, I think this is a mature place for Microsoft as they've hit a particular kind of market share with Teams rooms, that how to operate and how to provision becomes super important. And these tools were long awaited by the market and appreciated.
Yeah, definitely. It's about making scale rollouts easier and kind of reducing some of the pro serve overhead on that stuff as well. Making, if you're doing 1,000 rooms, then bringing the install down from 2 days to a day is a big cost of the project, for example. There was also a big push or a kind of promotion of sub $1,000 rooms as well. So Max Hub are kind of the vendor that's being pushed to be the example in this case, and they have a 799 compute unit that you can kind of reverse into an existing room with maybe it has mic and speakers and it was BYOD. You put this unit in and make it into a Teams room, and they said that other OEMs will be coming with sub $1,000 rooms as well, which is an interesting kind of pressure on the OEM market. We're now up to, I think, 14, 15 OEMs, and Microsoft are constantly pushing to be like, these need to be cheaper to scale out. So it'll be interesting to see how customers react to that as well. But good to see kind of new options for customers, I guess. The proof will be in the voting with customers' wallets of where they see the value on those things.
Yeah, this low-cost Teams Room story, which is available, I think, now both on Teams Room on Windows and on Android. There's just a significant amount of rooms that continue to be where customers would love to see a full room system experience, but the cost has just prevented that on the in smaller spaces. And as this provisioning story and the physical installation have become, simpler, the taking hardware down to around the cost of what was potentially a conference phone in the past in those rooms. And so, yeah, this idea that there's probably something in there today. It could be a camera bar combo. It could be a puck and a webcam. Being able to take a base kit and enable that as a Teams room and get that full experience is really interesting. And I think that we're getting to a simple place where some of this can be customer self-installed as well. Because I think the other side that breaks the bank often for customers who begin to look at this is just the cost of integrator labor that if anything has gone up. So there's still certainly a place for that in the portfolio, but in these ultra small places, this really unlocks a particular strategy for organizations where they could, if they can work out the install side, they could deploy this type of experience and have the both the experience and the insights that they have for Teams rooms at really interesting price points.
Yeah, and talking of small rooms, the other thing that was quite interesting was Microsoft are kind of acknowledging BYOD as a thing now. So previously it was very down in the Microsoft world. It was MTR is the right answer and BYOD is a fuss. Now Microsoft are kind of saying, okay, if you're going to do BYOD, we'll enable a reasonable experience. So a couple of things were announced here. When you plug your Teams laptop, into a BYOD device, it will understand that for that device, I will present a second screen that is dedicated to the Teams experience, so it doesn't pop your Outlook up on the second screen as you fumble around and you see emails from your boss, whatever else. It puts the presenter notes on your screen, only shows the presentation on the other screen, which is nice. Also, room discovery for both BYOD and shared spaces. So based on a single USB device being plugged into more than one employee's laptop, Microsoft will start to deduce that appears to be a shared space, reporting on that into the Pro Portal and giving you the option to then license that space for making it bookable, for reporting usage, those kind of things. It'll be interesting to see if Microsoft can convince people that $8 per room or whatever that price ends up being is worth it for the extra reporting and oversight and those kind of things. But certainly from a Microsoft point of view, it's interesting because they get to give administrators visibility of this is your estate, this is how much it's being used, these are the opportunities that heavily used spaces, you might want to look at the kit in those spaces. So it's a kind of an insights play as well as a management play.
Tom, there was something else on Teams rooms on Android, premium feature support and calendar view update. Is that something we have already mentioned, or do you want to touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, no, we should touch on that as well. So yeah, a lot of what we talked about was Windows, and there was more conversation on Windows than Android, but Android did get a notification that they're going to add all the premium capabilities. So things like watermarking and extra security capabilities will roll into Android, which is nice. That's a bit of a true up. And Android is also getting a new calendar view, so you can see multiple days meetings on the calendar view as well. Yeah, most of the announcements were Windows focused, but that was nice to see Android get a nod for some new features coming as well.
Superb. And there's also something on Surface Hub 3, wasn't there?
Yeah, Surface Hub 3. So again, this is a bit of a re-announcement. We've talked about it on previous shows. It's now shipping with the MTR, I think shipping December actually, with the MTR update. So this will be Surface Hub 3 is the first device that is a true Windows Microsoft Teams Rooms, and it'll be the first Microsoft Teams Rooms board to run in 4K resolution as well. So for those big 85-inch screens, the canvas will be 4K. So not the video, it's not going up to 4K from a video perspective, just from a canvas perspective. So Microsoft were kind of highlighting that as like their premier experience. And we know that the previous Surface Hubs will be able to be upgraded to Microsoft Teams Rooms as well.
Yeah, one note here I think that's interesting is just historically with Teams Rooms, they haven't supported 4K displays being attached. And so that has some interesting complications, kind of tactical complications. And so I think, here we have support for a 4K display, and they mentioned this is the first. And so I think we can expect to see 4K support. This isn't Teams in 4K, but 4K support for displays attached to Teams Room on Windows. Looks like that is kind of imminent and coming, which will get a lot of folks out of some complexity of having to either hard code or use little interesting devices, or and so that's refreshing news.
those were the core kind of UC elements of Teams, I think, that we kind of touched on. But there was a lot more besides that, including Planner, which was kind of took a starring role that they're going to change that whole experience. Sally, do you want to take us through what that looks like? Because I know you were following that and you were over there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I were there, and they it's kind of a big announcement, but still, it's kind of fell maybe under the radar. Is that they have the new planner? I guess everything is new now. Before it was modern, everything was modern. Now it's new Teams, new Outlook, new planner. And the thing is, what's happening is the following: Microsoft To Do and Project is going into Planner. It's not that they are making everything from scratch; they're just merging them, and everything is branded as Planner. So what they will do now, I think, imminent, is rename the app in Teams to Planner. Right now, it's tasks by Planner and To Do. It will only be Planner. And what we already see in the Teams app for Planner is that you do have features you have been missing from To Do, such as My Day, such as email, flagged emails, and so on, which means that the To Do features you were missing in Teams, you now already have. And they will then spend 2024 into unifying this experience, and everything is Planner. And this has some big implications, because now you can actually have personal planners, and Planner will be the interface you're working with for personal tasks as well. And to complete this story, you can now start with Loop in a Teams meeting, assign tasks, and then those tasks will be a planner, either for you personally or for those who were in the meeting, which then you will find assigned to me in To Do and Planner. And then you can work on those tasks and share them as Loop components in Teams chat, and also in the future in Teams channels. So it kind of like completes this story around working with tasks in Teams.
Yeah, I think it's Microsoft really trying to land that Teams is not just calls and meetings. Teams is workflow. Teams is your hub for. I think they're saying smart work now rather than modern work. But yeah, it's like if they tidied up that story up as well as they presented it, it'll be really nice. Again, I'd call out they clearly landed. There's a premium uplift here for like if you want the extra bells and whistles, tap on the premium license.
Yeah, so the Planner Premium, as far as I know, it's Copilot in Planner. And this is kind of mind-blowing, because now you can actually have a conversation with your tasks. So if you're using Planner now for all your personal and team tasks and project tasks, and from project even, you can now start having a conversation with all your tasks. And that's kind of a big deal. It's what we want, right? It's to ask the question, what's the most important thing for me to do today? And they've been talking for years. They've been talking about how should you like merge Planner and project for the web, and this is the way they're going to do that. So you will have the Planner view where you can have task dependencies, but then you can escalate the project as well. And from a licensing perspective, it will be the old project licenses, which will be, so we have Planner, which is included in Microsoft 365. You have Planner Premium, which will be Copilot. And then you will have the project plans on top of that again. So from a licensing perspective, the only new thing is the premium part.
And timescales on this, Starley? When can we expect it?
So Copilot for Planner, no one knows.
I thought you were going to make a big announcement there. You're like February 2024.
But the rebranding is happening now before the year's end, and then they will spend 2024 in unifying this experience and merging To Do, Planner, and Project. Most important thing, you will not lose functionality, you will only get more functionality. So they won't like restart the whole task management process, but they will start merging them. So, and it's already well on its way.
Superb. A really good update. Great to see Microsoft unifying those applications at last. Tom, last one for today that we said we'd talk about was the announcement around 3D meetings. I know you're particularly excited about this one.
Mesh. I feel like we've been talking about this for about 2 years. I think it was Ignite, 2021, where they were like, Mesh is going to be the new thing, which shows how long it takes some of these things to come to fruition. But we're going to get Mesh generally available in January 2024, so just around the corner. So Mesh is Microsoft's 3D meeting experience where you can jump into a virtual space and move around with keyboard and mouse and transport yourself and spatial audio, and you can get on your Quest headsets and do the full-on 3D meeting thing. So Mesh will be included in Core, and then there's an uplift that if you want to build your own 3D spaces, so you want to build a Accenture training center with Accenture branding, that kind of thing, you can build those 3D spaces. Interested in people's thoughts if that's going to be a niche or mainstream, but it's definitely something that certain customers are interested in, particularly designing their own spaces.
I find it interesting that they've taken the approach to adopt the Meta Quest as opposed to their own product, because obviously the Meta Quest is actually very low cost compared to the HoloLens. So
I think you've hit the nail on the head there. It's about price point. Like the HoloLens was built for more industrial use cases. It's not a device you're going to roll out to lots and lots of people, and you can see what Meta are doing. They're going to drive that hardware cost down lower and lower and lower because they want users. So I think Microsoft have made a good strategic move there to say, look, we're not going to own this hardware market. There's a partnership opportunity here, which I think is smart from them, to be fair.
It is a good move by them. That HoloLens is pretty specific for what you want it to be in terms of trying to get wider mass adoption of Mesh, of applications around Mesh, of the wider audiences using Mesh. You need the tools to be not barriers in and of themselves, and HoloLens would have been that for sure. I think there are very real use cases to Mesh. In the meeting spaces in different scenarios. I'm still one of those that is not bullish on the topic. I'm still one of those that says, all right, time will have to prove it to me in terms of wide adoption of us giving up reality to go live in fake world for our meetings and all that kind of stuff for the majority of our workday. But when it comes around, I'll gladly say, yep, I was wrong. But it's one of those that I'm like, okay, we'll play along. We'll sit and watch it. I sat and chatted with Neil Flooster a little bit about this topic when we were going over Ignite announcements, and I think we both were kind of that same mindset there. But at the same time, there are very real applications that I think beyond the average pro office worker. You look at places where you've got to design things together from remote locations, do remote troubleshooting of complex machinery, etc. I think there's some very real practical applications there that'll take root and become standards.
I co-authored a study on AR and VR, and even though it's in its infancy, I think this is Microsoft experimenting. And to Josh, to your point, there are very real use cases. It's not going to be every meeting, but you had HoloLens, which was more augmented reality, and that made sense if you're preparing $1 million piece of equipment and you can't fly somebody in. And, but this is more about a meeting where we're all in the same space, as opposed to like now we're all in the same meeting, but we're all having different experiences sitting in our own room. There are use cases that people have stumbled upon that you say, this is worthwhile. Maybe not for 8 hours a day, but maybe one meeting during your day. I think this is Microsoft saying, we want to be and let people experiment, and then to the point around having and supporting lower cost devices. But I think we're in the infancy of this. And, to your point, Josh, I think like you, I'm hesitant, but I expect that, maybe something is going to come and they'll be like, wow, why didn't I ever think about doing this meeting in VR? Right.
I think Mesh is like two years late. It was super hyped like 2 years ago. I remember we did talks in VR as well, and it was cool. And then okay, not doing that anymore. So we need to find those use cases. But I also think Copilot totally stole the thunder of Mesh.
Yeah, AI became the thing. I think we went mesh, quantum AI, or something like every year there's a big theme, isn't there? I think it's interesting if you look outside of our space into what Meta are doing and their video reality kind of podcast examples and stuff. Like the stuff Microsoft are doing with mesh is relatively basic in terms of the avatars, like no legs, very basic customization. But you can definitely see a future where your video photorealistic substitute maybe in a few years. Suddenly that's interesting, but we'll keep an eye on it. As you say, Kevin, I think you're right. I think Microsoft have to have a hand in this game because it might go that way, so they've got a hand in.
I think it's important though that it's part of the platform so that you can either like be in a mesh meeting or Teams meeting or a 2D meeting, and it's like the same platform and not like, oh yeah, you need to be over there to do that and over there to do that.
So Mesh also had their, not the Mesh, my bad. Even Meta had their booth at the Ignite in person as well, where they had the headphones and Quest headphones were there. And Meta has also tied up with Ray-Ban for their specs, which can record your calls, all those things. So we had a live demo of all those at the event as well.
When are we going to get a Copilot brooch that is our Copilot that follows us everywhere? That's the question.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of experience, let's just finish off with the Ignite experience this year. Mixed messages in terms of experience for hybrid attendees and in person. Kevin, I know you were at Kevin. What was your take on the event?
Yeah, so I was remote. I think there is something you miss out, and I think Microsoft, from the, what they call them, analyst, influencers, press, I think, other vendors, by bringing people together, you get to hear other people's questions, and you don't hear that remotely. And I think, I learned something by listening to, like, even in these groups, the questions that other people ask, that's often, very, very interesting. The thing that I want to point out is that Ignite, we focused on the Teams thing, but Ignite is, much more than Teams. And, I put all these sessions in my backpack. I think I have a month's worth of watching. But, foundationally, there was some great, sessions around like Cosmos DB, which is, these are platform pieces that are empowering teams and driving some of these advancements. And so, they had AI Studio, which is really allowing, data scientists and others to create these complex models, or to really create your own Copilot. And then they had, Copilot Studio that's based on a lot of the work they did with Power Platform, that, when you're in Teams and ask a question that Copilot can't answer, you can now, with Copilot Studio, which is a lot like Power Platform, you can extend it and connect it to your own data sources. So I think foundationally, Ignite shows a lot of capabilities that then over the next subsequent years, we see surfaced inside of Teams, because Teams is, I don't know, the hub where work gets done, or Tom, you said now it's the hub where smart work gets done. But, for a lot of people, they live inside of Teams, but Ignite gives you some insights in those more technical sessions, what you might see at Ignite 2024 and 2025. So I didn't want to lose sight of that. There was, tremendous amount of non-Teams announcements as well.
Any other thoughts on the event?
Now, in terms coming back to the event in person specifically, we thought most of the announcement that we heard were already announced prior to Ignite. We did not feel that we had a lot of technical force, like from the product or engineering team on ground talking to the customers. Some of the feedback roundtable conferences or the sessions were kept online only. We did not have those for the in-person customers or partners that were there. So it was a mixed bag, not that technical. All the MVPs felt that it has now become a more of a marketing event rather than being a technical ed tech event as such.
Yeah, it's not the tech ed of old where we got together technical audiences. It very much does feel like a promotional marketing event, doesn't it?
No, they did have the labs, the workshops. So I talked to a lot of attendees there. I was there as well, and they were very happy with the labs because there were more deep dives and also the pre-day workshops. I think it was a post-day workshop as well, which was only there for in-person attendees. And so I talked to some customers that were there, and they were very, very happy with those. And they had also profiled trainers that ran the workshop, which they got to ask their questions, spend some time with them, and so on. And I don't disagree that Ignite is primarily a market update event these days, but you can have some really good conversations they had the Expo Hub at the top floor. So I were part of some of the expert meetups there, and if you genuinely have questions, want something explained, want to talk about your situation and so on, and you have that kind of focus, then I think actually the Ignite setup of today is very good because it's a lot of people, a lot of Microsoft people there as well that can answer your questions, and also a lot of Microsoft people in the vicinity. So sometimes they call someone up and they say, hey, we have this question. Can you come and help answer this or book a time with that person? So I think they're very available to have those discussions. From a session point of view, I think it was very difficult to navigate because you have the combination of hybrid, online only, and in-person sessions. So if you're there for the sessions and the deep dive sessions, well, I think it's not the tech ed of old.
Well, great session today, everyone. Lots of updates there. Thank you so much for joining us. And if you've enjoyed today's session, please look out for our Microsoft Teams prediction series, which is just about to launch the first week of December. So look out for that because all our special guests here today will be putting forward their predictions for the year ahead, all related to Microsoft Teams and the ecosystem. So watch out for that. So that's it from us. If you're new to UC Today, subscribe. Don't forget to share the knowledge, like, comment, or even share this video. It's always appreciated. And if you're a Microsoft Teams fan and you want to be part of the conversation, you can join us all on LinkedIn and X, and our social links are in the description. Thanks, Tom. Thanks to our speakers and for everyone for joining us. We'll be back again next month. Thanks for watching.